let's begin. Number 1. The Pear of Anguish. Imagine inventing a torture device shaped like a fruit. That's what you get when medieval humans were left alone with too much time and too many metal tools. Enter the Pear of Anguish, a charming little instrument designed not to kill you, but to make you deeply regret every life decision that brought you to this moment. This device looked innocent at first, until it was cranked open. It was inserted into, well, let's just say one of your body's more intimate orifices, mouth, rectum, or vagina, and then slowly expanded using a screw mechanism. The goal wasn't just pain, oh no. The goal was rupture, humiliation, and an absolutely unforgettable exit from whatever crime you were accused of. Used mostly during the 16th and 17th centuries, the Pear of Anguish wasn't always lethal, which somehow made it worse. You might live, but the memory of being flowered open like a metal tulip in your most private places, that's forever. Psychologically, it was all about domination, public shaming, making an example. And also, apparently, proving that someone out there really needed a hobby other than designing trauma gadgets. Basically, your body becomes a meat puzzle. Congratulations. Number 2. Lingchi, Death by 1,000 Cuts. If you thought the phrase death by 1,000 cuts was poetic, it's not. It's horrifically literal. Lingchi, aka slow slicing, was a Chinese execution method used up until the early 1900s. The condemned was tied to a wooden frame and then, piece by tiny piece, sliced apart. We're not talking one-and-done execution here. We're talking an artisanal, handcrafted dismemberment session that could last hours. Think of it as the world's worst spa treatment, but instead of exfoliating, you're exfoliated to death. First came the outer limbs, arms, legs, then the fleshier bits, then the torso, all while the victim was technically alive, though often drugged to prolong the misery. This wasn't about efficiency, it was about symbolism, about watching someone be unmade. It was punishment for treason, parricide, or other crimes that supposedly stained your soul permanently. Why so dramatic? Because in Confucian thought, the body was sacred. Destroying it this way wasn't just punishment, it was erasure. Your brain tries to understand, but your toes, they're curled. In protest, in empathy, in horror. Number 3. Scaphism, the bug buffet. You know it's going to be bad when it involves boats, milk, and insects. The ancient Persians, usually quite civilized, decided to invent Scaphism, possibly the worst way to die in the history of I Dare You. Here's the setup. You get tied naked between 2 hollowed-out canoes. Then they force-feed you milk and honey until you're vomiting and diarrheaing into the boat. Then they pour more honey over your body, because you're the snack now. Then you wait. As flies, beetles, and worms crawl in and out of your every crevice, the sun burns, the bugs feast, and your insides rot while you're still breathing. The record says some people lasted over 2 weeks like this, not dead, just melting slowly into a buffet. The psychology here? Absolute degradation. You don't just die, you dissolve. Your identity, your dignity, your skin, all consumed. Basically, you're a rotting piñata for bugs with commitment issues. Number 4. Brazen Bull. Barbecue you alive. Let's say you're a tyrant. You want to kill someone, but you also want it to be theatrical. What do? Easy. You commission a sculptor to build a hollow bronze bull. You trap your victim inside, then you light a fire underneath. Welcome to the Brazen Bull, invented in ancient Greece, because apparently human suffering wasn't extra enough. As the person cooked alive inside the metal chamber, their screams echoed through a system of pipes in the bull's head, transforming into what sounded like the roaring of a beast. Artistic, horrifying, and the first documented case of turning torture into performance art. Bonus fun fact, the inventor of the bull, Perillos, was thrown into it as a test run by the very tyrant he pitched it to. That's what we call poetic justice, and also a terrible client meeting. It's a cow-shaped oven, you are the roast, and your screams are the soundtrack. Number 5. The breaking wheel. Human rotisserie. Ah yes, medieval Europe, the land of plague, bad haircuts, and the breaking wheel. If you ever wanted to combine a Ferris wheel with maximum pain, this was your ride. The process was as elegant as a car crash. You're tied, limbs splayed, to a giant wooden wheel. Then the executioner uses an iron bar or hammer to break your bones methodically, starting from the bottom. Legs, arms, maybe a rib or two, all crushed into splinters. Sometimes they'd weave your limbs between the spokes like some sadistic yoga pose. And no, you didn't die instantly. That would be merciful. After the shattering came the display. They'd prop you up, bones like a bag of sticks, and let the birds and sun finish the job. Some people survived for days, just lying there like a broken action figure on God's dashboard. Why? To make a statement, to show the world what happens when you mess with the system, and apparently to ruin any chance of sleeping normally ever again. Number 6, the rack, Stretch Armstrong's evil cousin. Let's say someone thinks you're hiding something, like secrets or a spine. Enter the rack, a delightful device that took pull yourself together and flipped it into pull yourself apart. Your ankles are tied at one end, your wrists at the other. Then the cranks start turning, slowly, methodically. Every rotation stretches your joints, tendons, and ligaments until they're screaming louder than you are. Shoulders dislocate, knees snap. Eventually, you're not even taller, you're just rearranged. The rack was a favorite during the Inquisition because apparently truth can be extracted through torso origami. Most confessions were made somewhere between the first pop and the third scream. Modern medicine calls this catastrophic soft tissue damage. History calls it persuasive. You'll call it a reason to never trust anything with cranks. Number 7, flaying, just skin things. If you've ever gotten a sunburn bad enough to peel, congratulations, you've experienced the diet version of flaying. Now imagine that times 1,000, minus the aloe vera. Flaying was the art, yes, art, of removing a person's skin while they were still very much alive. Starting with the legs or torso, the torturer would use a knife to peel you like a banana, but slower and with more screaming. Assyrians loved this one. So did medieval Europe, China, and some Mesoamerican civilizations. Because why just kill someone when you can deconstruct them? The goal wasn't just death, it was fear. Public skinning sent a very clear message: obey or you become the world's worst anatomy lesson. The worst part? Skin is actually super hard to remove in one piece. So it took time, skill, patience, like a craft project from hell. And your brain, it stays online long enough to know exactly what's happening. So yeah, sweet dreams. Number 8, sawing, not the tree kind. Let's say you're accused of a crime and someone decides, hey, let's cut this guy in half. Normal reaction, right? But wait, they don't start at the neck or even the stomach. No, they start between the legs. Sawing was done by hanging the victim upside down, so blood rushed to the brain and kept you alive longer. Then, using a big old saw, the executioners went right through the groin, slowly, carefully, often stopping just before they reached the head, because mercy is for cowards. This wasn't just physical torture, it was symbolic. The worst part of your body was destroyed first. You were desecrated, humiliated, split like firewood in front of a crowd. What's the psychological takeaway? Pain plus spectacle equals power. Also, no amount of medieval therapy was going to fix the brains that came up with this. Number 9, the heretic's fork. Because one spike just isn't enough. Let's say you're accused of heresy, thinking differently, which was basically the medieval version of updating your iPhone without permission. Enter the heretic's fork, a genius little device that took metal rods and turned them into a spiritual chastity belt for your thoughts. Here's how it worked. They'd strap a small metal rod between your chin and your chest, or sometimes between your chin and your neck. The whole point? You couldn't nod, you couldn't lower your head, you couldn't sleep, because if you did, stabby time, right through your flesh. And you were also gagged or tied in place so that you couldn't talk back, swallow properly, or do anything except stare straight ahead like an over-caffeinated statue. This wasn't just torture. This was a 24-hour don't you dare look down challenge. It It was psychological warfare disguised as posture correction. Bonus, you'd often wear a sign with the word heretic while doing this. Because what's better than pain? Branded pain. Number 10, rat torture, nature's little interrogators. Let's add some vermin to the party. If you ever thought rats were just urban pizza thieves, think again. Rat torture is what happens when someone takes a metal bucket, straps it to your stomach, traps a rat inside, and then heats the other end. The rat, panicking from the heat, does what any sensible creature would do. It digs. Your abdomen becomes its escape tunnel. Your intestines, obstacles to be gnawed through. No sharp instruments, no fire, just a scared animal with claws and teeth, and nowhere else to go but forward. Psychologically, this method is disturbing because it weaponizes the unpredictability of nature. You don't get a clean villain with a knife. You get a rat doing what rats do best, survive at your expense. It's biology meets panic. Welcome to a live-action horror show powered by warm metal and rodent instinct. If the word impale makes you flinch, congratulations, you're still emotionally intact. Popularized, read, made infamous, by Vlad the Impaler, yes, that Dracula guy, impalement involved placing a sharpened wooden stake somewhere unpleasant. Like the rectum, or the vagina, or, just through the torso if they were feeling merciful. Then gravity did the rest. Slowly, sometimes over days, the stake wasn't always pointed to avoid piercing vital organs too fast. The goal was to suspend you. You didn't just die, you hung there twitching as your body betrayed you inch by inch. Vlad reportedly impaled tens of thousands of enemies and left them on display like medieval warning signs. It was less about execution and more about vibe setting. The message? I could have just killed you, but where's the art in that? Number 12, knee splitters, a hug for your joints. You've heard of knee slappers, these are knee splitters. Less funny. This device consisted of two spiked metal bars placed above and below the knee. A screw mechanism would then force them together, crushing the joint like a grape between medieval salad tongs. It didn't just break bones, it destroyed them. Ligaments shredded, cartilage mashed, kneecaps optional, apparently. Most victims passed out before the final crunch. But if you were lucky, read, extremely unlucky, you'd be conscious through the entire joint apocalypse. You wouldn't die, though. You'd just never walk again, or sleep, or trust chairs, because sometimes pain doesn't need to be fatal. It just needs to linger like a bad memory on replay. Number 13, Spanish donkey. Sit and suffer. Ever sat on a bicycle seat too long and regretted everything? Now imagine that seat is a sharpened wooden triangle. That's the Spanish donkey, a name that sounds like a bad cocktail, but is actually much, much worse. Here's how it worked. A victim was forced to straddle a pointed wooden beam like riding a horse. Except instead of a saddle, it's a triangle. And instead of moving, you're just sitting there with weights tied to your ankles to make sure gravity helps that beam do its thing. The result? Groin-splitting agony. Literally, it wasn't meant to kill you right away, just slice you apart slowly, internally. Every second felt like someone trying to divide you into two very unhappy halves. Psychologically, this one was about humiliation as much as pain. The posture alone made it look like a punishment designed by someone with a very twisted sense of humor, and a vendetta against your crotch. If you've ever complained about bike shorts, please take a seat. Actually, don't. Number 14, Crocodile Shears, for ambitious sadists only. Let's enter the chat with some metalworking nightmares. The crocodile shears were iron pincers that looked like a medieval barbecue tool, if the barbecue was your manhood. Yes. This one was gender-specific torture, used especially for those who dared to assassinate royalty or just annoyed the wrong monarch. These shears were shaped like giant tongs, with serrated, jagged edges on the inside. They were heated until red hot, then clamped down on the offender's penis. and pulled. Yup, just let that sentence sit with you for a second. This wasn't about getting information. This was about spectacle, vengeance, and the kind of trauma you don't just carry, you haunt places with. There is no metaphor for this, just pain, injustice, and a flaming pair of crocodile jaws where your future used to be. Number 15, Judas Cradle, the pointy end of faith. Last, but certainly not soothing, we have the Judas Cradle, a pyramid-shaped seat designed to explore just how much weight your orifices can support before giving up. You were lowered naked, usually, onto the sharp tip of the pyramid, right into your rectum or vagina, not dropped, lowered, slowly, because acceleration is too kind. Sometimes they'd bounce you up and down on it. Sometimes they'd tie your limbs to prevent movement, so your own body weight did all the work. Infection, internal bleeding, and total despair followed shortly after. But death, not always. No, you'd often survive, just unrecognizable to yourself, physically, emotionally, spiritually. Because nothing says, we'd like to question your morals, like turning you into a human shish kebab and blaming Judas for the design. So yeah, turns out human history is less enlightened progress and more creative ways to ruin someone's Tuesday. Subscribe for more stories that make your spine reconsider being attached to your body.